So we Yumi reached out to Detective Callahan, and I got on board, and now that has come this evening. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Detective Callahan.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Clarkstown PTA, the Clarkstown Central School District, for inviting me here to speak tonight. I would also like to acknowledge Acting Chief Catherine Mann is here, and I appreciate the Clarkstown Police Department allowing me to do this as well. My name is Brian Callahan. I am a detective with the Clarkstown Police Department. I have been a police officer for the past 25 years. I started my career with the New York City Police Department when New York City was facing the crack epidemic. Because the crack cocaine was so prevalent on the streets of New York City, I worked mainly in street narcotics enforcement units and in the Organized Crime Control Narcotics Bureau. I was later assigned to the DEA Drug Task Force, where I worked on large-scale domestic and international drug trafficking cases. Approximately 10 years ago, I joined the ranks of the Clarkstown Police Department, where I'm currently assigned to the Detective Bureau. The Clarkstown Detective Bureau investigates a wide range of crimes, including drug overdoses. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the current opioid epidemic and provide an overview of the many different types of street drugs that are available to our community and to our children, resulting in many of these overdoses. At the end of this presentation, participants will be able to identify growing trends in street drug use, recognize common illicit drugs by their names and by their images, describe strategies being implemented by law enforcement to combat these drug abuse. I'm going to start this presentation off tonight with a TV commercial called That's How. It was aired in St. Louis during last year's Super Bowl. I'd like you to watch the video and listen to the words.
Back a few, and then they were gone. So your drugs are real bad, yeah, you need some more. So you call the shady guy and say you're looking to score, and that's how you got addicted to heroin. You came over quick, said we got something new for just $10, you snort or chew. Said just one time, and then you'd be fine, but soon you OD'd, and now you're dying. And that's how you got addicted to heroin. And that's how you OD'd on heroin.
When I first saw this commercial, I thought, wow, that sums up the opioid epidemic in 1 minute. My second thought was, why do they use such an upbeat song while talking about such a horrible topic? I researched the commercial and I found out that the song's upbeat tempo was done on purpose. The thought process was, if we just put this commercial on as another drug commercial, people are going to walk away from the TV and not pay attention to the message. Their idea is brilliant, because we need to hear the message. Clarkstown, just like every other community, is being affected by this epidemic. Here we have the 2015 and 2016 drug overdoses in Clarkstown. If you look, in 2015 we had a total of 49 overdoses. In 2016, so far year to date, we've had 44, and we are now just entering into the holiday season, which everybody knows is usually a time when people fall. If you look at these statistics, we have 26 overdoses that people survived in 2015 because Narcan was administered. And year to date, in 2016, we have I'm sorry, last year was 26, this year is 25. With 93 total overdoses in 2015 and 2016, we have saved more than 50% of the people using Narcan. Every police officer in the Clarkstown Police Department is capable of administering Narcan, and we carry it in our police department. This is something that we feel is something that needs to be done, and we were in the forefront of doing that. We have to understand how we got to this point. In 1995, the FDA approved OxyContin as a time-release pain reliever. This was heavily marketed as being a less addictive a less addictive drug, and incentives were offered to provide medical people to prescribe these drugs. I'm gonna walk away from this. It's a little easier for me to speak out here, if that's okay. Okay. So what happens is, in 1995, OxyContin comes out. All the medical people, or doctors and medical providers, are told that this is going to be a less addictive drug to help out people with pain. So what happens is, there's these incentives that are offered to the medical professionals to start pushing this medicine. This led to the overprescribing by healthcare providers. In 1996, OxyContin was rolled out. In the first year, it did $45 million in sales. And it's only gone up from there. We're talking billions and billions of dollars. All these other companies that were rolling out these medicines said, hey, we want to take advantage of this as well. All right? So the market starts to become flooded with pain medications. Recreational drug users say, hey, listen, if we get our hands on this, we can crush the drug. That time release is going to be voided, and we can get a high off of it. So what do we have? We have regular drug users crushing the pills and snorting them. This was supposed to be a time-release drug, but being that you take away the time release, you're going to get a high that's going to last several hours. The effects of this are similar to cocaine, right? So we have, the U.S. makes up 5% of the world's population, but we consume more than 80% of the global opioids prescriptions. That's an astronomical amount. If we look at this is the national overdose deaths from prescription drugs. You can see the steady increase. All right. In 2014, you're looking at about 26,000, and it's gone up from there. I broke this down to simplify things. There's two types of prescriptions that we're looking at here. Okay? We have the sedatives. The most common ones that we have, or that we see out on the street, are Xanax, Valium, Ativan, and Klonopin. All right? The street names that we're talking are Candy, Downer, sleeping pills, and Tranks. How are they taken? They're usually either swallowed or injected. Next, we move down to sleep medications: Ambien, Lunesta, Sonata, and Rufinol. Ambien, very, very popular for people to be taking. All right? What are they called? Forget-me pills, Mexican Valium, R2, Roofies, Rope, swallowed and injected as well. These are some medicines that are probably sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. The overdose rate for these, benzodiazepine, from 2001 to 2014, you can see the steady increase. You're looking at about 8,000 overdoses in 2014. That's a lot, but nothing compared to what we're seeing with the opioids. These are the opioid prescriptions that we're seeing that are being abused most. Codeine, Robitussin with codeine, Phenergan with codeine, Tylenol with codeine. These names that you see here, Captain Cody, Cody, Lean, Schoolboy, Scissor, I'm going to talk about that later. Keep that in the back of your mind. These can be injected, swallowed, or often mixed with Sprite as well as a Jolly Rancher. We'll talk about it. Then we have Vicodin, common names Vic, swallowed, snorted, or injected. Then we have Oxycontin, probably one of our most prevalent drugs that is abused. Percodan, Percocet. Nicknames for those, OC, Oxy, Hillbilly, Heroin, Blues, Perks, Killers. And then we have on the bottom here, fentanyl. This is probably one of our biggest problems right now. The drugs that you see that I've just talked about are being mixed with fentanyl. Fentanyl is about 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin. So what happens is, it's a cheap synthetic drug that people are mixing in with their heroin. And it's causing people to overdose at an extremely high rate. If you look at the statistics here for the overdose of prescription opioid pain relievers, 18,000 people in 2014. 2015 and 2016, the number's even higher. If you add the 18,000 to the 8,000 from the sedatives, all right, you're looking at about 26,000 people died with these prescription pills in 2014. And again, that number has only risen in 2015 and 16. The prescription drugs causing similar effects to heroin are Oxycontin, Vicodin, codeine, morphine, fentanyl, and methadone. These are some pictures of what they might look like. Again, this is all stuff that is probably sitting in your medicine cabinet at home. If you're not using it, and it's expired, do you think maybe we should get rid of it? Absolutely. Clarkstown Police Department has a pill take-back program. We'll talk about it later. This stuff that's sitting in your medicine cabinet is easily accessible to your children. It has a street value. We're going to transition from the pills to heroin. All right? So what happens is, all these overprescribing, we're starting to see an influx of pills all over the place. So the government says, hey, wait, hold on a second, something's going wrong here. We need to cut back on this. So the government now starts cracking down on doctors and healthcare providers that are overprescribing. So they implement this program called the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. Very effective, right? It basically monitors what the providers are putting out there on the street. This eliminates people from doing the doctor shopping. People were going around to each doctor and saying, hey, I'm not, I lost my medication, or I'm not feeling well, can I get some Oxy? And then they would just go to the next doctor and say the same thing. So they would wind up with these excess pills. What are they doing with them? They're abusing them, or they're selling them. OxyContin also came out with a tamper-resistant coating that went around their pill. That was to help prevent people from crushing it and then snorting it and breaking the time release. Does it work? It does work a little bit. But is it totally effective? No. So what happens now? The government starts cracking down on our pill supply. So supply and demand, common economics come into play. Prescription pills, the cost starts to rise. Right now on the street, each pill, so if you have a 30 milligram pill, it's about $30. It's $1 per milligram. So all those prescription pills that you have sitting in your medicine cabinet, and your kid walks by and he sees that bottle there, and he says, wow, if I take one of these pills, I can sell it to my friend and get $30. If you have an 80 milligram pill, it's $80. It's a lot of money, especially for a young kid. So we start to see our pill supply is going down. But what we see is our heroin supply start to hit our streets. Again, like we said before, the perfect storm. Heroin floods the market. Your kids can jump in a car. If they don't have a car, they can jump in an Uber. They can take it down to Paterson, New Jersey. They can get a bag of heroin for $4. Cheaper than buying a 6-pack of beer. There's no real threat in it either. Hey, if I get caught by the police, I'm in an Uber. Right? They're not going to take my car. They're not going to take my parents' car. My parents can't even track that I'm going down there. There's no toll. They don't have to go into Washington Heights and hope that, you know, my parents don't see on the Easy Pass that I crossed the bridge. They don't even have to worry about that. So what happens now? Just like the pills, we start to see a huge influx of heroin. Where's it coming from? Basically, it's coming from Mexico, and then we have it's also coming from Colombia and South America. The heroin coming from Mexico is called black tar heroin. The normal heroin that we see around here is from South America, white heroin, basically. This is what the black tar heroin is on the right-hand side. It's black, it's a sticky substance, and it's usually sold on the West Coast. We don't see much of the black tar heroin around here. What we see around here is this, right? Could come in a white color, could be a little bit brown. Depends on what it's mixed with. Common street names that we see for the heroin: dog food, very common around here. Dragon, snow, scat, horse, H, Mexican brown. You can see in these photographs the deterioration of people's skin that are on this heroin. Going back to the black tar heroin versus the heroin that we see around here. What we see around here is on the top. Those are called glassine envelopes. That's what the heroin is sold in around here. The heroin is placed into these glassine envelopes and then stamped. It's stamped for a reason. It's just like marketing anything else. If somebody wants to get the Obama heroin, they're going to go to the same person and they're going to say, hey, give me the Obama heroin. If they want the DOA heroin, they're going to ask for the DOA heroin. People get used to going to the same supplier, and then this is how they identify what type of product they're getting. Down on the bottom here, that's what the black tar heroin is sold in. It's basically little balloons that are cut up. The tar is placed into the balloon, and it's sold that way. What works best for us is the top, right? Because we can track that. It helps the police actually realize who's selling what and where can we get it and when was it sold. Is that product still on the market? It's beneficial to the police around here. How is heroin abused? Injected, snorted, sniffed. What we used to see is that people didn't want to do heroin. Why was that? It wasn't sexy, right? I don't want to put a needle in my arm. I don't want to have track marks. But now the problem is that they don't have to inject it. They don't have to put a needle in their arm. All they have to do is buy a heroin that is of high quality. And that's why that stamp is important to them. Most of the heroin that's fentanyl laced or of high quality, they can snort it and almost get the same high as if they're putting a needle in their arm. So it's not, they don't have to feel like I'm not so sexy anymore because, I was putting a needle in my arm. That's gone. The girl on the right here, it's called Chasing the Dragon. Again, they don't even have to put a needle in their arm. They can light the heroin and they can snort or suck in the fumes. If we look at this, the national overdose deaths from heroin, you can see in 2014, or you can see the steady increase. In 2014, you're looking at like 11,000 people. And again, the number has only gone up from there. Cocaine, still around. Hasn't gone anywhere. but we're not seeing as many overdoses with that. It's still sold in the crack cocaine. It's still smoked through a glass pipe. It's still snorted, and we're seeing that we're seeing overdoses around the 5,000 to 6,000 range in 2014. Much less than heroin, much less than what we're seeing with the prescription pills. The other alternative is, why not mix both together, right? A speedball. We put the heroin or the morphine in the same syringe with the cocaine, and then we'll shoot it that way. Still common to this day. Those track marks over there, or that guy that's shooting on the right-hand side, is what I'm talking about. People were afraid of that in the past. That's not the case anymore. The heroin is so pure and so strong that people don't have to worry about having those track marks. Okay, we're going to move into club drugs. Molly, not the girl next door. All right? Everybody is familiar with MDMA or ecstasy. This is the new ecstasy. It's called Molly, right? Very common name. Your kid might be saying, hey, I'm hanging out tonight with my friend Molly, right? I don't know. Nobody knows what that means. Sorry. Street names for this MDMA Molly. Street names. Molly, Ecstasy, E. When I was growing up, it was known as ecstasy. Now it's known as Molly. It's a synthetic chemical made in labs, primarily manufactured in Canada and the Netherlands. It's a stimulant and psychedelic. Has energizing effects and distorts time and perception, enhances tactile experiences. Mainly distributed in tablet forms with logos creating brand names for users to seek out. Similar to the glassine of heroin. Kids realize, hey, if I get this Molly, it's going to be stronger than the other. So they have a brand name that they like. It's usually marketed in colorful tablets with smiley faces on and stuff like that so that the kids find it appealing. Right? Doesn't look like you're taking anything that's going to harm you. It's also could be in a powder form. You put it on your tongue, you close your mouth, nobody's going to be the wiser. You let it sit in your mouth, and it takes effect. I'm going to play this video
about the dangers of a drug being used by teenagers across this country, and this weekend it turned deadly. Here's ABC's Lindsay James.
In New York City, promoters shut down the massive multi-day Electric Zoo Music Festival after the deaths of two young people. Police say 23-year-old Jeffrey Russ and 20-year-old Olivia Rotundo died after taking a drug known as Molly.
You know, someone must have got a bad batch or something happened that, you usually hear stuff about people dying off that kind of stuff.
Molly, short for molecule, is supposed to be the purest form of MDMA, the main ingredient in ecstasy.
That does create this euphoria. They believe it's not harmful or addictive, and that there really wouldn't be any adverse side effects. But unfortunately, there can be many.
A staple of raves and techno clubs, Molly is increasingly popping up in pop culture. Madonna announcing this at a music festival last year. Later saying she was referencing a friend's song. Molly is also name-checked in hits from artists like Kanye West to Miley Cyrus. In addition to those two deaths, 4 other concert goers were rushed to the hospital after overdosing on Molly. 2 of them, David, still being treated tonight.
Our kids are surrounded by this, as you can see in the music. And then you see that kid in that video just so flippantly say, oh, he must have got a bad batch, right? These kids don't think that these drugs are dangerous. The problem is that these drugs are not what the drugs were a few years ago. what's happening is that the drugs are being mixed. We're taking the drug of MDMA, ecstasy, Molly, whatever you want to call it, and now we're mixing in a little bit of fentanyl with it. People are looking for a better and higher and quicker drug high. So you're starting to mix these things together. So now you're starting to see these kids that are taking these drugs that they've taken before. They didn't have a problem with it, and now they do. Some of the things that they are referred to in this drug culture with Molly, MDMA, some of the things you might hear, some of the words that your kids might be saying, stacking, taking 3 or more tablets at once, piggybacking, taking a series of tablets over a short period of time, candy flipping, or Skittles parties, right? Everybody's heard the Skittle party, right? Everybody that goes into your mother's medicine cabinet, they grab a pill, they go to a party, they throw it in a bowl, and then when everybody walks in the door, everybody just picks a pill out of the bowl and they stick it in their mouth. They have no idea what they're taking. It's called the Skittles party. MDA is rarely used alone. It's usually mixed with alcohol or marijuana. So now, again, people are looking for a better high. They're starting to mix the drugs. And now on top of it, they're not even sure what they're taking. Synthetic cathinones, bath salts, Flocka, and N-Bomb. These are central nervous system stimulants. We're not seeing as much of this as we had in the past. This kind of came onto the market in a very short period of time, maybe like 2 or 3 years. It crushed us, and now kind of faded a little bit. But what's happening now is some of this stuff is showing up in the Molly. So now the drug is starting to resurface, but it's starting to resurface with the other drug. So they're being mixed. This has similar effects to cocaine, MDMA, methamphetamine, and it's another hallucinogenic. I have a video that I'm going to show that kind of explains this a little bit, and then I'm going to talk about it a little more.
There is a dangerous substance with an innocent-sounding name, bath salts. Police departments around this country are confronting a surge of people abusing the synthetic drug with horrifying consequences. The police have made videos of suspected users completely out of control. Here's ABC senior national correspondent Jim Allen.
This 19-year-old Florida boy was never charged with a crime, but police say he's under the influence of a cheap, widely available, supercharged speed, commonly called bath salts.
This kid was a normal kid walking around maybe the week before.
A potpourri of constantly changing chemicals that have nothing to do with your mother's actual bath products. Instead, these inexpensive synthetic drugs create a condition police have come to call excited delirium that makes users paranoid, violent, and unpredictable. Police suspect bath salts are behind the face-eating fatal attack on an innocent Miami man.
But you gotta chill out a minute.
And perhaps behind this growling...
Paranoia sets in. I just fell out the second floor window. Look at her reaction. She can't even get up. This can be brought right over the internet. It just goes to show you how strong and powerful these drugs are. Similar to this salvia, is now a synthetic. It's called synthetic marijuana. Basically, this is another thing, not for human consumption, but it's sold as like plant feeder and stuff like that. It's basically a product that's marketed towards kids. You can see, look at the packaging, Scooby-Doo. They have all different cool packaging, so kids walk up and they say, oh, listen, this can't be that harmful. They got Scooby-Doo on there, or a big smiley face. It's sold in these like little foil packages like this. It's also sold as Cloud9 in a liquid, and K2 or Spice that you'll see. And again, it has this little disclaimer on here that it's not for human consumption. That's the catch-all. It's an herbal mixture that contains man-made cannabis chemicals related to THC. THC is what basically gets you high in marijuana. All right? It originated in the UK. It's marketed as a natural, safe, and legal alternative to marijuana, but it's much stronger and it's unpredictable. Why is it so unpredictable? Basically, it's a leafy-like substance that is laid out on like a big mat, and then they spray a chemical on it. It's just like a chocolate chip cookie. Sometimes you get a cookie and it has a lot of chocolate chips in it, and sometimes you get one that doesn't really have that many. Same concept here. Sometimes you're getting that leafy substance that has a lot of the THC on it. So when these kids are smoking it, it might work for them one time, but the next time they go to take it, they get the one that has a lot of THC on it. It gives them a hallucinogenic feeling. It's sold in these colorful foil packages as incense, potpourri, or herbal mixtures. And again, it says not for human consumption. It could be a liquid, and it could be smoked in vaporizers or e-cigarettes. Very important. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. They change the chemicals in these things a little bit each time. So what happens is the government catches up with them and says, hey, we're going to ban the chemical that they use to spray on the leafy substance. And then what happens is the companies then just change the chemical one little bit, and then it's legal again to sell. Good thing our government now is really catching up with that, and what they're doing is they're banning a whole bunch of substances at once that prevents them from doing that. But that's how they were getting around this for a while. We're not seeing, you used to be able to walk into a vaporizing store, a head shop, whatever you want to call it, or even a convenience store, and you'd see these foil packages on the shelves, and kids could just buy it. We don't really see that here anymore, unless you go into a store that's really not up to par, but they could just buy it over the internet. So it's just as easy. It's basically known on the street as Spice, K2, Joker, Black Mamba, Kush, or Chronic. Probably a bunch of other names as well, but those are the main ones. We're going to get into another product here. It's called wax. This is probably the most potent marijuana, per se. It has the highest THC level, probably about like 80%. It looks like earwax, right? But it also has this one down here that's like a little hard substance, and this one here that looks like a little melted caramel. There's a lot of names for this stuff. They call it oil, which is 710 flipped upside down, wax, earwax, honey oil, butter, butane hash oil, butane honey oil, dabbing. That sound familiar? Right? Everybody walks around dabbing. You see sports figures doing it. You see people on the news doing it. If you ask some people, they're going to say, hey, that's a dance that came from, I think, Atlanta. If you ask other people, they're going to say, you know what dabbing is? Is when I cough, when I'm smoking, that's what I do. I don't know. also known as Black Glass and Earl. I'm going to show you a little video on how this is made. This is probably, we don't see this too much, but we do see it. The reason we don't see it so much is because it's very expensive. It's probably the most expensive weed out there.
Wax is the most powerful form of marijuana on the market. Its name derives from the fact that it looks just like everyday earwax, only this version is a hardened, more potent version of THC, the ingredient in marijuana that gets you very high. People who use marijuana wax call it dabbing because it only takes a small amount, or a quote-unquote dab, to work. Another name for marijuana wax is VHO, which is short for butane honey oil. Wax producers are known as blasters because they extract the wax by placing it in a tube or pipe and blast it with butane. All of you amateur chemists out there, take note. This is a very, very dangerous process. Once the wax has been safely extracted, it can be smoked in a bong or a vaporizer. Wax is to marijuana what freebasing is to cocaine or heroin. It's 80% pure THC, which basically makes it the blue sky of Mary Jane. This concentrated form of marijuana gets you higher and faster. Unsurprisingly, wax is the most expensive form of marijuana on the market. It can cost as much as $70 to $100 per gram in California. In Colorado, you can get it for under $50 per gram. Before you run to the bank, you should know that wax is so powerful it can trigger hallucinations and episodes of psychosis. Oh, and did we mention it's very, very dangerous to make? The smallest error when blasting can cause a massive explosion. The safest way to get marijuana wax is to buy it at a dispensary. Still, there are many safety issues to consider when it comes to wax. For example, if the butane isn't filtered, it can compromise the purity of the THC and cause harmful side effects. Advocates are calling for the government to regulate marijuana wax production to make it safer. It won't kill you if you're not an idiot. While wax isn't completely outlawed in states like California, it is definitely illegal to make. You can buy it in Colorado, but only over the counter, and you must be over 21 to purchase. Definitely don't try to make wax at home. Stay away from the butane and leave the blasting to the professionals.
I don't know if you saw during that video the line outside the dispensary in Colorado. Pretty wild, right? One of the questions you got to be sitting here asking yourself is, how are these kids getting all these drugs? I'm sure everybody by now, after this past election that just happened, is familiar with the darknet, right? Basically the internet, but for people that are very familiar with computers, can go into sites that most people just don't go to when you Google something. Silk Road was probably the biggest, or probably one of the first darknet sites to be out there. And people could go on there and you could basically do anything. You can buy a gun, you can hire somebody to murder somebody if you want. You could buy drugs. You can basically do anything on this site. This is how the kids can get into this, and this is how they can actually go and have stuff bought without really, you know, going down to Paterson, New Jersey, going into Washington Heights. This is an actual screenshot of Silk Road. Right here. These are the drugs that you can buy on this page. Ecstasy, opioids, precursors, psychedelics, stimulants. So I said, you know, you can go on and buy these drugs. And somebody once said to me, oh, my daughter can't do that because she doesn't have a credit card. I said, she doesn't need a credit card. You give her money for the holidays, and she goes down and she buys a card down at CVS, like a green dot card or a prepaid money card. They go on the internet and they order up, and they'll ship it to your house. Or they'll ship it to a friend's house, or they'll ship it to a house where they know the lady down the block really doesn't go out too much. We'll just ship it to her house, and when the UPS guy comes, we'll track the package and we'll grab it before anybody sees. Right? Make sense? These are just some of the. This is just one screenshot of this site. What happens though is this promotes counterfeit prescription pills. These pills are manufactured to look like legitimate prescription pills, but they're not. They're a mixture of what I've been talking about. Bath salts, fentanyl, mixed with Xanax, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and they just put it all together. Whatever cheap substance they can get, and they can make a better profit, is what they're going to do. So you're getting counterfeit pills. They're entering the U.S. basically either from Canada, Mexico. They're sold over the internet, the dark net, and they're shipped via mail. It's coming in from every which way we can think of. The problem is, a lot of the pills are made using deadly amounts of fentanyl. Like I said before, 50 to 100% stronger than heroin. There's now carfentanil and trifentanil, which is 500 times as strong as heroin, 1,000 times as strong. One little bit of that makes it into one of these pills that your kid or somebody else's kid that buys over the internet, and then they go to a party and they throw it in the bowl for a Skittles party. That kid is overdosing. I'm going to move into e-cigarettes and vaping. Cigarette smoking amongst teenagers and most people, I think, in every age, is down. If you look at this little graph right here, they're saying in 2017, that's what you're going to see, the spike of people moving from cigarettes to e-cigarettes or vaporizers. E-cigarettes, you don't really even hear it much, right? It's everybody, hey, I'm vaping, I'm vaping, I'm vaping. The good news is, not many people are smoking anymore. The bad news is they're saying now this vaping, the oils that they're smoking, is harmful. But that's not really my concern. My concern is that there's no odor to this vape. It could be flavored to smell like candy, bubblegum, mint flavored. You walk into your kid's room and you smell like a mint flavored smell, you might say to yourself, oh, hey, what's that? Nothing, I don't know. I just had a piece of candy, piece of bubble gum, whatever the case may be. You would know, you would not be the wiser. There's really no smoke to it. If there is, it's a very short. Most people have seen somebody vape, right? You see people inside movie theaters. You see people inside gyms. They take a quick hit. There's a little puff of smoke, and it's gone. These are called vape pens. They look like thumb drives, little pens, or stylus. Some of the things you might want to look for is your kid's mouth is dry constantly, or he might have a nosebleed. Telltale signs that they might be vaping. The problem is the vaporizer has moved to the next level. You have Snoop Dogg, who's in the game now. He has an herbal vaporizer. Might be tweaked a little bit. So now what you can do is you can put whatever you want in there. That salvia that we talked about, that synthetic marijuana, that wax, all these things could be put into these vaporizers and they can smoke it. And there's no smoke involved. The smell is not there. When we're out on the street, if somebody's smoking with one of these vaporizers, very difficult for us to tell what it is. A lot of times it's just like an oil, right? What is the oil? I don't know. Can't tell unless I send it to a lab and test it. very difficult for the police to track. I'm going to show you a little video on the vaping.
On any given afternoon, Broward County deputies come across this.
And he told me they find those really bad. And the high that they get will last several hours.
This is Flocka, just one of the inexpensive synthetic drugs ravaging South Florida. And there's a new twist that's making fighting these drugs even harder. E-cigarettes or vaporizer pens.
It's just a huge challenge. It's affecting our entire communities from prevention to rehabilitation.
Lieutenant Ozzy Tianga says vaping drugs is so discreet, teens can do it right in school.
There's no scent. They sit in the back of the room and they think it's funny that they're vaping, and what they're vaping, I cannot determine.
It used to be that if you were trying to get high, it would smell.
Exactly. All of it has changed.
And that same secrecy makes it tough for police to know what's inside that vape pen. They have to get it tested by a lab.
You can't determine what's in it right now.
Not at all. In fact, these individuals can smoke it right in front of you.
A recent CDC study found that e-cigarette use more than tripled among middle school and high school students in 2014. It's not known how much of that is drug-related, but young vape users are posting videos of themselves getting high on YouTube. The Drug Enforcement Administration is so concerned because synthetics can be so dangerous, no matter how they're ingested.
We've seen it time and time again where somebody has overdosed and died. There's a significant number of overdoses that are occurring related to these types of drugs.
All of this is so new, no one's keeping track. No one knows just how many people have been injured or have died from vaping synthetic drugs. But already emergency rooms are seeing an increase, and the stories are disturbing.
I have had patients in my practice in the emergency room that I have walked in on that are actually vaping at the bedside.
Dr. John Cunha says recently a patient was discharged after an overdose and went into a hospital bathroom on his way out of the hospital, vaped more drugs, and had to be taken back to the ER.
I think that these devices do have a role in helping people get off of actual cigarettes, and they may be proven safer in that case. But in the hands of teenagers and drug abusers, they are definitely a very dangerous thing to have.
So the problem that we run into is all these synthetic drugs that we're talking about, man-made drugs, can be bought right over the internet. Now these kids can put it right into a vaporizer and sit right next to somebody and be smoking that, and nobody will be the wiser. This is definitely a problem. It's definitely something you should be aware of, and it's definitely, as you can see, on the rise. This is something that I just wanted to put out there, because you think, how could this actually happen, or this would never happen in my area or my neighborhood? This is a marijuana grow house, right? Becoming more and more popular. Basically, they're called like, they're growing hydroponic marijuana, very strong marijuana. In this picture here, those are all little marijuana plants, and there's water running underneath them, growing them into this right here. This is from a house in Valley Cottage, right here in our town. What these people did was they wound up going and they tapped into the gas lines as well as the electricity, and they bypassed it, and then they ran it to the house. So they would be undetected on them using an exorbitant amount of energy or gas. And they were able to convert a high ranch, an extended high ranch, into a full hydroponic grow house. Probably one of the most unbelievable things I've seen in my 25 years as a cop. If you see something, or you see something that's out of the ordinary, there's people coming in and out of a house that maybe don't belong there. That's information that should be passed along, and we appreciate it. Scissor, lean, robo-tripping. Remember in the beginning I said to you, I said the codeine and the cough syrup, promethazine, codeine, cough syrup, Sprite, and a Jolly Rancher. You say, what does that really do? It's a drink that kids are using. It's called lean. They mix these three things together and they drink it and it gives them a high. It's being highly talked about in videos with rappers and everything else like that, and the kids are aware of it. I'm going to play a little video, just give you an idea what it's like, and you make your own assumption on that.
The Lil Wayne seizure may have been caused by the drug scissor. So what exactly is scissor? Well, despite its growing popularity, the drug can be highly addictive and very dangerous.
It's the bizarrely named beverage that produces a high so intoxicating. Hip-hop artists have been under its influence for years.
Alcohol makes you mad, scissor makes you calm, makes you laugh at jokes.
Known as scissor, this glorified cocktail calls for multiple ounces of the prescription cough syrup, promethazine, with codeine, mixed with soda and Jolly Ranchers for added sweetness. But thirsty fans aren't taking doses to prevent colds.
Codeine is in the same class as morphine. People like to take it for getting kind of a body high from it, or essentially the
The cough syrup concoction originated in the South in the 1990s and quickly gained popularity when rappers started to make music about the liquid, also known as syrup, lean, or purple drink. Fraser Boy, Lil Wayne, 3 6 Mafia artists all boasting about the booze in styrofoam cups. But the craze for codeine proved to be fatal for DJ Screw in 2000 and rapper Pimp C in 2008.
Codeine can kill, it can slow down your breathing.
Put too much to make go to sleep and not wake up.
Anytime a substance that can be so dangerous is popularized through music or through art and culture, it becomes something that we need to be very concerned about.
And scissor can also lead to increased heart rate, liver damage, and high fever.
If we think about how much our kids are influenced by the music that they're listening to, you now have scissor is being glorified through music, and Molly, which is being glorified through the music as well. This is what our kids are listening to day in and day out. So they don't think there's anything wrong with it. They see the rappers, they see the people that you take Madonna. You see those people out there and they're doing it, and they're taking it. Hey, it's not going to hurt me either. Then you look at what that kid said. Hey, you must have got a bad batch. This is all stuff. Yes, sir.
Are they mixing it with the sweet drinks because it tastes bad to take it straight, or does it actually change the high?
No, just to make it taste better. So that's why they throw the Jolly Rancher in there. Make it taste a little better. So when you look at it that way, this is being glorified day in and day out with our kids when they're listening to the music. Inhalants. I know I'm going through a lot here, guys, but I just wanted to get it all out there. Inhalants are among the first drug that young children use. All right? This is stuff that is basically in all aerosol cans, found commonly in household spray paint, markers, glues, cleaner fluids, whippet, computer cleaning products, hair, and deodorant sprays. About 1 in 5 kids report having used inhalants by the 8th grade. All right? This is usually the first thing that gets kids into, hey, if I do this, I'm going to feel good. One of the few substances abused by younger kids more than adults. All right. I remember when we were younger, big thing was whippets, right? We got that canister basically from the whipped cream. You put it in a balloon, you sucked it in, made you feel high. This is what we're talking about. This is what's being used by the kids at this age in the junior high school. Basically what they do, it's either called bagging or huffing, right? You put the fumes into a bag and then you suck in the bag. Or you're huffing, you soak a rag with gasoline or something like that, and then you suck in the fumes from that. And that's going to give you the little high that they're looking for, right? It doesn't last long, only a couple minutes, but what you could do is look for some signs of this, all right? You might see paint or stains on their clothing, right? Spots or sores around their mouth. Their eyes are red or nose is runny, right? Chemical odors, right? Your kids shouldn't be coming home smelling like gas, right? They're drunk, dazed. They're dizzy, nauseous, loss of appetite, anxious, irritable. Yes, sir.
What are the age factors for these kids? From what age to what age? In other words, once a kid turns 18, apparently not having to say about what's going on. When 17 and under, they have consent. So what's the ages that we're talking about?
For the huffing here or for everything?
Just basically for everything.
Well, I can tell you that I would say your age range for the stronger drugs is going to be from like 17 to 30 is probably where the majority of the overdoses are, where we see that.
So that some of these parents should know that once a child turns 18, their legal rights as parents have been put aside. That kid goes to the hospital or goes to somebody speak to them. And that's one of the things that we do when I talked about previously about getting, if the kid is incoherent in an emergency room, the first parent that shows up should have the right to sign a waiver stating that he will be responsible for the child. Where if not, the child's 18, and you say, I don't want my dad to talk to me, I don't want nothing to happen, and then you have to walk out.
Big issue, because your kid is 18. We show up and we say, hey, and you tell us, hey, my son's under the influence, right? We don't want him to harm himself or somebody else. We bring him down to the hospital. We check him in, and then when he starts to feel better, he checks himself out. There's nothing you can do about it, right? That's a big problem.
Yeah.
But that comes down to the HIPAA laws and everything else and out of my control. But yes, that is a big problem.
We've talked about kids incoherent and under the influence of something. First parent that responds while it's still incoherent should become the responsible party and say, this is what I want done. I mean, I've had one of my kids' pockets gone through, and that was thrown out of court because cheating the commission.
Yeah. I understand your concern, but that's not really in my realm. But yes, it is an issue. Okay. Common signs of drug abuse or drug use. A lot of these are very easy to pick up on, but there are some things that you might not really be in tune with unless you see it, right? But sudden changes in mood, right? That could really happen at any point. Secretive behavior, always a problem, right? But that's what teenagers do. Change in sleep patterns. This one right here. The morning sickness, diarrhea, and constipation. What do you see every time you see one of these opioid commercials on TV, right? One of the side effects is constipation. That's something you might pick up on, all right? Something you should be looking for. Right? Nodding or falling asleep sitting up. You ever see a heroin addict? They can walk around sideways. They don't fall down, but they're basically asleep. It's the weirdest thing. All right? If you see somebody like that, or you see them, or they're basically walking around, but they're not falling down, but they look like they're sleeping, that's something you should be worried about. Cigarette burns on their clothing, right, or the carpet. You go in their room and you see the burns on the carpet. That should raise you up a little bit. Scorched pieces of tin foil, spoons or needles, common classic things used for heroin use. Lack of money. When they haven't bought anything, you give them $100 and it's gone. Where'd it go? Again, they could be going down to the store, they could be buying these green dot cards, vanilla cards, or any prepaid money card, using that money to buy something over the internet. Missing work or school, spending time with known drug users. Right? We should know who our kids' friends are. And we should know a little bit about them. Go on your kids' Facebook pages, see what they're doing. If they have an Instagram account, you should be looking at it. These are all simple things that we could do that might prevent something from escalating. What is law enforcement doing to help with this? Nationwide, the DEA has rolled out a strategy called the 360. This is a three-pronged approach. It's really based on getting law enforcement to coordinate locally and federally. Diversion control. We kind of talked about that, right? The prescription pills being monitored. How are they being prescribed? Who's prescribing more pills than other people? This prevents the pill shoppers and doctor shoppers. It's basically a diversion control, encourages responsible prescribing practices. And community outreach, partnership with local organizations to combat the opioid epidemic. Kind of what we're doing here right now. All right, putting it out there, letting you know what's going on. What are we doing here in the town of Clarkstown? Right now, currently, we have an officer assigned to the Drug Enforcement Task Force in New York City. That gives us access to what's going on throughout the country. Where are the drugs coming from? Who's bringing them in? Where are they going? What are those stamps on the heroin out there right now? What should we be looking for? They have their finger on the pulse. They're getting the information from around the country. We have 2 officers currently assigned to the Rockland County Narcotics Task Force. They're working locally with all the other departments right here in Clarkstown, in Rockland County, and they work collaboratively to combat the drug problem right here in our town as well as the surrounding towns. The Clarkstown Police Department, Street Crime Unit, Narcotics Unit. We have 4 people assigned to that. They do our daily stuff where complaints come in regarding any sort of drug activity, or they're out there riding around in plain clothes. They're looking for this type of activity that they can stop. All officers are trained in administering Narcan. As you saw from that slide I put up there before, right, we have close to 50 saves, where we've saved more than 50% of the people using Narcan that have overdosed in 2015 and 2016. Drug court and diversion programs. That goes with the Rockland County DA's office, right? We arrest somebody. They're not looking to put somebody in jail that has a problem and needs to be helped. They're looking to divert that person, put them into a program, and make them a better member of society. School resource officers. Every school, from this school to all the high schools in Clarkstown, have a school resource officer in it. Those people are a liaison for the parents as well as the students to come to with problems if they need to, and help them through the process. The prescription pill take back initiative. I talked about that before. If you have any prescription pills, now you see if you have any cough medicine with codeine or something like that in it, you've got to get it out of the house if you're not using it or if it's expired, right? That is just temptation sitting there waiting for somebody to walk in there, take it, and try to get rid of it, or take it themselves, or bring it to a party. Get rid of it. The Clarkstown Police Department, We have a mailbox at the police department, and somebody brings in pills, we throw it in the mailbox, and then we empty it. In 3 weeks, we took back 40 pounds of pills. This is on a regular basis. People are doing it. It's helping. It's preventing another kid from overdosing in our town. Does anybody have any questions? I threw a lot of information. I'll take your question in 1 minute. I threw a lot of information at you. I went through it pretty quickly, but I know everybody's got stuff going on. This is just to give you guys an idea of what's out there and what we're doing to help with the problem. Yes, ma'am. I'm going to say a couple of years younger than that, younger than 17. So have I experienced it? I would say young high school age.
Yes. Not any parent that has a kid out of ADHD or even Ritalin, basically the same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids that are taking prescription medications that are in the school unsure. You know, are they being monitored correctly? I don't know. That's something the parent needs to watch. Yes, I would say then there would be kids in the school. But are we looking at kids that are abusing it versus kids that need it? There has been instances where kids in the high school have been abusing narcotics. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
That darknet, I didn't know anything about that darknet.
Yes.
Part of the internet. Now, if you go on your computer, you can see history of where your children have been. Will that show up, or is there a way you can find out if they've been on that?
There are some sites that they have to, or there's some things that they might have to download onto the computer, and then that will lead them into the darknet. And then what happens a lot of times, that opens up your system to possible, hackers and everything else like that. So if you go on and you look up darknet, it will give you an exact way to get into the internet. It'll give you the warnings. It'll tell you if you're entering the darknet, this is what potentially could happen to your computer. So I'm not a computer expert, but I'm telling you, if you have any questions, just go on and type in darknet, and it'll give you all the information you need.
And again, I'm not doing any police shootings, but